watching the England-Wales game, and I was watching an incident where Dan Bigger put in a crossfield kick to Josh Adams on the wing. Now, hear me out. This is where you're going to go. Josh Adams leaves the ground to catch the ball, and rightly so. Freddie Steward, the England fullback, at the time was slightly out of position, realised that he wasn't going to get to the ball. He turns, he runs towards Josh Adams, who has now left the ground. If you watch and this isn't me talking from an English perspective at all, this is me talking from a passionate rugby supporter's point of view. The initial contact of Josh Adams on Freddie Steward was direct contact to the head. Then Freddie Steward wraps his arms, brings him down. Now, yes, you can take into account the whole tackling in the air, which I get. It's never been a thing. Where is the emphasis? The emphasis is always on the defending player. Okay, so again, we'll go back to Springboks game. The Argentinian fullback leaves the ground, direct contact with the head. Now we're switching the situation here. The attacking player has now left the ground. Initial contact directly to the head of Freddie Steward. Now, Freddie Steward is, you can say, somewhat made contact with him as well, but it was direct to the head, which then Freddie Steward wraps his arms, goes down. Anyway, Liam Williams scores a try. I just want to know where the consistency is with attacking and defending players when it comes to, because if we look at the World Rugby law, I just screenshotted it here, 9/11, I think it is, dangerous play. Yep. Players must not do anything that is reckless or dangerous to others, including leading with the elbow or forearm or jumping into or over a tackler. Now, if Freddie Steward was stood next to Josh Adams and they jump up together and he makes contact with the head with a knee, you could probably say that it would go to the TV replay, and there's contact to the head, maybe a penalty. My point is, and I'll let you speak now, my point is, as a defender, you need to have the self-awareness of not to make direct contact to a player's head. I get that, always has been the way. But I feel like in the flip side of that, you've got to have, I mean, it doesn't state it clearly, but the attacker's also got to have somewhat self-awareness to not make direct contact with a defender's head. Now, yes, the tackle in the air, whole situation argument, you can carry on, but the initial contact was to the head of Freddie Steward. Now, what would be your take on what I've just said?
See, that's hard, because then, like, if I catch the ball, I can just be like hopping around everywhere. You know what I mean? Because then you're not allowed to tackle because I'm in the air technically.
Yep.
Which obviously you're not going to fucking do that. But then again, it's let's take it to when a 9 will play the props or the forwards right near the ruck, and they obviously going down low. It's like, well, then how do you tackle those guys if you're not allowed to tackle around the head, but a prop is catching the ball and tucking his head down to obviously low center of gravity to get to go through tackles? Like, how do you tackle that guy? So there's kind of a gray area around that as well. I think they need to come out. It needs to be more black and white. I think there's too many gray areas, because you've now brought up 2 instances, both very similar, but total opposite as well, because one was where the defender was the problem. And yes, the second one with the Josh Adams, they have said that Freddie Steward's been the problem, but Josh Adams has jumped into him technically. You can look at it both ways. You know what I mean?
You're always going to jump and catch the ball. It's always been a thing. You're going to, and like you said, it's just I feel like it's a slightly gray area. Like, you can't make contact with the head as a defender. You shouldn't be able to make contact. If he jumps and he makes contact with the side of Freddie Steward and Freddie, fine. But the fact is, it was direct contact with the head. And I'm not talking from an English perspective here. I'm talking from a rugby perspective.
My thing was just, I remember Freddie was looking at the ball, and then he ran. He was like, oh shit, this is going over my head.
Yes.
And as he ran to turn around, Josh Adams was already fucking jumped into him here.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about split seconds. Like, what must he then, like, does he have to then jump out of the way like that? And that's hard, because then he's going to go score.
Yeah.
So it's a tough, like, I'm glad I'm not in the position where I need to be making those rules, but I do think the higher ups that make these rules need to be more clearer on it and actually lay out, because there's been a couple of instances similar to these the past few years.
Yeah.
It must lay out, like, when something like this happens, this is what's happening afterwards. when something like this happens, because there's so many, like in both of those situations, as I said before, they're both very similar, but they're both very different as well.
Yeah.
So
the outcome's the same. It's the direct contact with the head, which is what I'm focusing on. And it doesn't say defender attacker. It just says you can't be reckless. And to me,
but then in the South Africa Argentina game, the ref said that was fine. It was only afterwards that he got red carded and got 2 weeks. So then it's like, well, what the fuck's going on here? If one ref thinks that that's fine, where he's then afterwards it's been looked at and he's been given a red card. Like, what was that ref seeing? Where we do have TV replays in play, there is TMOs that can go while play's happening. They can go back and look at things. How did 3 or 4 refs think that was fine?
Yeah.
So it's like
it's a huge gray area. I